So hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. And today we're speaking with Amanda Radovic, Director of WBT Innovation Marketplace. And we'll be discussing the event itself, but also touching on what Texas is like for an entrepreneur and how that ecosystem functions as a whole. Amanda, it's a pleasure to have you on our podcast. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
So starting off, would you give a little background and introduction to yourself for our audience?
Sure, absolutely. So I am the Executive Director of the WBT Innovation Marketplace. I began working with Development Capital Networks, who actually produces the WBT, about 4 years ago. So this will be my fifth event with WBT, and it's a lot of fun each year. We get to work with a whole new round of entrepreneurs and help prepare them to, talk to investors and licensees. And so the event has grown quite a bit over the years. And in the work that we do, we get to touch base and work with different strategic partners from Fortune 500s, the venture capital community, entrepreneurs, university researchers, and the federal labs. So it's a large, very diverse group that we get to work with, so it's a lot of fun.
And you organize and run the WBT Innovation Marketplace, and this year that's taking place on the 22nd and 23rd of March. So in a nutshell, what is the Innovation Marketplace? What are its origins and what's going on there this year?
Well, that's a good question. The WBT began back in 2002. It was really the thought process of the National Association of Seed and Venture Funds and the Federal Lab Consortium and some of the federal agencies, and they approached development capital networks with sort of a problem and developed a solution. The problem was that it was difficult to get technologies that were being developed in federal labs and university labs into the marketplace, and that the cultures were very different between the lab community and the venture capital community. And so they decided that they were going to put this event together. It was designed to be a one-time event. It was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It began with roughly 30 companies and a group of a few hundred people, including investors and licensees, and then really developed from there. We found a host in Arlington, Texas, with the Chamber and the Center for Innovation at Arlington, and that was back in 2004, and so we've been there since. We have a very committed host who really believes in developing the region and really developing venture capital as a whole for the nation. So the event has grown. This will be our 9th event, and as you can imagine, the event has grown quite a bit. Now we have roughly 100 presenters. We have over 100 pieces or 150 pieces of intellectual property and about 600 attendees.
What are the typical attendees like? What's your typical audience that actually comes to the event?
The audience can be broken down into almost thirds. We have the presenters themselves that make up a large portion of the audience. We have strategic partners and service providers. It can be anyone from an IP attorney to someone who does IP assessments. It could be someone that also provides, executive services. And then the other third is going to be the investors and licensees. And the investors and licensees, the way that we categorize them, these are individuals with committed funds. They're actively looking for deal flow, and they, again, have committed funds, whether that be in the form of licensing or venture capital or private equity. And this group also contains a small subset of angels as well.
And in terms of this year, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to? Are there any trends in your program?
You definitely see trends from year to year. It's just, I think, the nature of technology itself. We see unmet needs out in the market, and then there's definitely a response to those unmet needs. This year, we're pretty excited about having the IP listings. There's going to be a large portion of intellectual property represented at the event, and many corporate entities, Fortune 500 companies that will be, scouting for this intellectual property, either to, supplement their own R&D efforts, to strengthen their own IP portfolios, perhaps something that they're doing research around, and really just to, even co-sponsored research or co-development for new lines of or new markets that they're interested in engaging in. So this year's theme is very much focused on sort of open innovation, really opening those doors, sharing what these unmet needs are, and having the startups and spin-outs, the universities and the federal labs really demonstrate their capabilities to partner, to license technologies, and to work with the VC community. And so I think that's something that maybe has been missing, especially for the universities and the federal labs. The challenge is often getting these technologies into the marketplace. How can we connect with these entities that we want to partner with and show them, our IP portfolios that sometimes can contain thousands of pieces of IP. How do you sort of show people what you have in a representative way so that they can access it easily?
You also mentioned that developing venture capital as a field is an interest, and open innovation and these sorts of things. That's, I guess, where GrowVC fits into the event as well, since Yoko will be presenting there, talking about GrowVC and what we've been up to.
Yeah, the venture capital community has been is really the root of the WBT. The WBT began, primarily as a funding source, and it's been one of the trends that we've seen over the last couple of years. We can attribute it to just the economy, and one of the things that we've seen with entrepreneurs in general is that they're more open to licensing. So I would say even a couple of years ago, primarily the startups and spin-outs were looking for purely funding. And now I've definitely seen a shift over the last few years where they're open to licensing. They're looking for funding and licensing. I think they're just getting very, very unique about where their sources of funding are going to come from. And it's been a trend over the last few years. So in the venture capital community, again, that's the roots of the WBT, and they'll definitely be represented at the event.
All right, let's take a step back a little bit to look at the broader scope of the ecosystem there in Texas. So what's entrepreneurship like there? What role does it play in the economy? What are the perceptions associated to entrepreneurship? Is it something that is a viable or attractive career option in Texas? What's the ecosystem like in general?
We are, Development Capital Networks is actually based all around the country. So we have offices in Scottsdale, Oklahoma, Portland, Chicago. We even have a colleague that works in South America. So our approach when we have an event in Texas is that our host there really sees it as a way to get Texas, bring it to a national and even an international audience. So it's very much a global and a national event that brings Texas to the forefront. And I think in the Texas ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, that is where they want to be and where they are going. I think when people sometimes think of entrepreneurial, flourishing and thriving entrepreneurial ecosystems, of course they think of Silicon Valley and Boston. And I think Texas is really making strides in becoming one of those thriving ecosystems, and they very much have the makings of it. They have there's a lot of venture capital in Texas. There are numerous Fortune 500s headquartered in Texas, and then there's just a lot of support. There's great universities and entrepreneurship centers. So, I mean, in terms of entrepreneurship in Texas, it's really got all the components. There's a lot of resources there, and I think that's what an event like ours can showcase for a region. It really shows a national and international audience what Texas can offer. And I think we're seeing that, resonate around the country, because we do see a lot of investors